So as promised at the end of the last video, I told you that I would tell you why I want you to name your thing specifically in the library. And the reason that we use classic tweening, which requires symbols, is because it cuts down on memory. So I'm going to show you a sloppy way that you can get the same results, well, almost the same results. So I'm just going to I'll just create a new layer here, and you don't have to do this. I just want you to be aware of it. So what sometimes people do by accident is they'll say, okay, I just want to move this shape from here over to here. Now the first step should be to convert this to a symbol, but sometimes people forget or they just get sloppy. So let's say they go over a certain amount of frames later, do an F6 to copy that, move it over here. So now we have a keyframe that has this shape over here, and then a keyframe with it over here. And again, don't follow me, I'm showing you a bad example. But if you were then to tell the computer to insert a classic tween here, what it will do, it may give you a warning the first time that you do it, asking if you want to continue the way that you're doing it. But after you do it once or more, it may stop doing that. Here's the bad part about it, is to create this, I have two entities in my library. And as you'll see, we only need one. So don't work that way. And what I want you to do is keep an eye on your library and see that throughout the whole making of this second section of this animation, you will have one and only one entity inside your library, and it won't be until you go to the creative part at the beginning and start making more symbols that you end up with more symbols in your library. Okay, so I'm going to undo this mess by first getting rid of that layer, and then shift click and clicking the trash can here to get rid of those. So now let's move on and start creating more of the finished product. So next we're going to start on this little block of text here that's ever changing. And I don't want to make this a typing class for you, so I provided you with this electronic document. You can just simply swipe across here, Command C to copy, go into Flash, and now we should create a specific layer for here. In fact, we should do some house cleaning here. So it looks like the symbol is on this layer. So let's call that main symbol. And let's call this layer text. So we'll click in the text layer. We'll do an F7 here to put a blank keyframe if you don't already have one there. Oh, it looks like there was already one there. And then we will just grab the text tool, and we do want this to be Helvetica New regular 20-point black as well. And then we're just going to go ahead, click here, Command V to paste. And looking at the example that was provided, we can see that that text remained there for about 2 seconds. Let me jump back a bit. And it looked like it was there for like a full second before that started to move. So let's go ahead and recreate that little bit there. So text stays for 2 seconds. So there's our text, and we're at 20 frames per second, and I can verify that by just clicking on nothingness and looking at my properties, 20 frames per second. So 2 seconds would mean that lasts till frame 40. So I'll do a F5 to extend that out. And then similarly, this symbol, we want to stay put for a total of 1 second before it starts moving. I don't want to do an F5 though, because I want a copy of it there. So I'm going to do an F6. That gives me a copy of that symbol, and then I can start to animate it. So my first thing says I can animate the X position. So X is this way, left to right, Y is up and down. So we'll click here, and we'll do an F6 again. Oops, I must have accidentally pressed F8 there. F6. And then making sure that we are on that keyframe, we will move this over. And if you want to constrain it while you move it, you can hold down the Shift key. That makes it so you can't accidentally move it up and down as well as sideways. And then we simply control click or right click in between those two frames and select Create Classic Tween. So that's a step I've been keeping from you until now. So scrubbing the playhead, we can see everything just remains the same for the first 20 frames, and for the next 20 frames this moves over here, and then our text is going to change to announce what's going to happen next. Now you could just simply put a F7 over here and then paste the new text in, but what I found works a lot better is that if I do a F6 instead, copy the same text, I get my text box, and then I just paste the new text in there and I don't have to worry about repositioning it. So I go back over here, copy the next text, Command C, come back in here, double click until the text tool fills in there, and then just swipe across, Command V to paste that in. And then if we go back and preview the video, we'll see what happens is that this all stays put for a full second. So that would take us out to frame 60 with this, and then it says I can, or it actually shows this, animating the Y position. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to frame 80. We'll do an F6 again to paste that instance of the symbol again. We will click and drag that down a little bit, and I can hold the Shift key once again, and if I start pulling down first, it will constrain the movement to just up and down. And then I right click in here, create my classic tween. So I have it holding still for a second, moving for a second, holding still for a second, moving for a second. And I can go ahead and extend my text out using F5 to right there. And then we'll pause, we'll go look at the example video. I would highly suggest at this point, if you feel like you got what's going on here, that you pause my video, see if you can go ahead and create the next couple of items that are coming up, like animating the X and the Y position, uniformly scaling down, uniformly scaling up. Of course, looking at this video or this Swift file to get you going, and then only using my video as a resource just to verify that you did it right. I would definitely suggest that you watch through all of what I have to instruct, because I may include some extra things along the way that you'll want to know, but you don't want to just depend on me spoon feeding the information to you. So with that in mind, let's look at what happens next. Looks like we're good there. It says that for 1 second, does that for 1 second, says that for 1 second, does that for 1 second. So we can at least get the rest of that done. In fact, here's an important tip. A lot of times in your animations, it's important that you end up where you started, especially if you need like a fluid rotating motion or something like that. So since we're going to next animate the X and the Y position and bring this back up to where it started, we may as well just copy a previous frame. But keep in mind, it does pause for 1 second before it does that. So we'll go out 20 more frames. Hit an F6, that'll give us that pause, and then we will go to the last frame where that was in the position that we wanted, and we'll click and drag just like we were going to move this frame, but we'll hold down the Option key and that'll make a copy of it. But keep in mind, when you do copy a frame, it's a click, release the mouse, then a click again, and then a drag. So I clicked it once to select it. I'm going to click and drag, and I'm holding down the Option key. And since I ran out of space here, I'm not going to worry about where it goes. And then I'll just take this and move it over a little bit so I can see it. And I know since everything's going in 1 second-ish increments here, I can move that out to frame 120. And I can always verify what frame I'm on by looking down here. So now, since I made a copy of this, it's going to go from here to there, which includes moving the X coordinate and the Y coordinate. And I will go ahead and create my classic tween in there, and I have exactly what I need. So then all I need to do is catch up with my text, and that should change right here. So once again, I'll just click there, do my F6, go back to the document and paste it in. But I have that pasted there, and I kind of get the idea what's going on here. Rather than doing an F5 and an F6 later, I'll just go out to one frame past where the action happens here and click right there and do a F6 right off the bat. Go back to the document, steal the next bit of and swipe across there. Whoops, wrong tool. Command Z back. Better double click to where I get in there and then swipe in there. Command V to paste. And let's go ahead and just leave that as is for a while. Just grab the selection tool to get away from that. And let's go ahead and uniformly scale down. We know between 120 and 140 that should just be sitting still. So we'll go here, we'll hit our F6. Now you'll notice that it copied the tween with it. And that happens sometimes. I think it has to do with where you left off on the last frame. But one, you could leave it like that because nothing's happening here. You could, in theory, just go on to frame, what would the next one be, 160, do your F6, then make your change, which in this case was a scale. But to me, this is misleading to you as a troubleshooter going back through. So wherever there's not a tween, I would just go ahead, right click in there and remove the tween. It's just going to make things a lot cleaner and easier to understand. And then we'll go ahead and perform this tween. Scale this down. What you typically do is go over here and grab this free transform tool. But this tool you use so much, it has a nice shortcut. Well, it's not a very intuitive shortcut, but it's Q. Maybe you could remember that it gets you there quickly. But if you hit Q, it brings you in there automatically or quickly, and you can then resize this. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key because that was the name of the game here, that it was a uniform transformation, and that's what the Shift key does, is constrains the proportions. So I'm scaling this down, so that's what I have going on there. Next will be a scale up. And here's for some of you where using the features in, say, like Google Chrome, where you can speed up the videos, might help. Some of you will want to see all these steps because you're so new to the program. So anyway, what I did right here was clicked here, did my F6 with my text, and then I'm going to paste the new text in here. Before I do that, I'll go ahead and go out to frame 180. Do my F6, remove the tween from there just for cleanliness sake, and then we'll go ahead, we'll go out to frame 200, do the F6 again, and if yours still happens to be selected with the free transform tool, you can go ahead and work away on it. If not, just select it. Either grab the tool or hit Q, and then you can hold down the Shift key and go ahead and scale up. And we won't worry about going back to the exact size that it was before yet. And go grab that text and paste it in here. I'll do this one last time, and then from here on out I won't show you as I do this. So the next thing it says is I can uniformly scale up. So swipe across, Command C, copy, and then last thing I had selected was the selection tool. If I go over the text and I click a couple times, the program's smart enough to realize that since I'm clicking over text, I must want to adjust the text, so it automatically changes to the text tool, much like it does in Adobe Illustrator if you're familiar with that program. And then anyway, I just did a click and a drag, swiped across here, Command V to paste that in, and then once again in anticipation, I'm going to go out to the frame after the next bit of stuff occurs. And so there I have, I'm saying I can uniformly scale down, and then I'm saying I can uniformly scale up, then I'm actually doing it. Now we come to a key thing, and that is, how do we get back to normal? Well, I already explained it a couple steps ago where I said we can copy what came before. So we'll do that again in the